feel like an intro, but this season 2 could have been done in one, but felt I needed to. The perfection of our conception projected through reflection that's connected is a blessing, and I needed to. Plus I need a few moments just to speak to you about these individuals whose mission to deceiving you, saying the achievable is just so unachievable, but that's only conceivable if you say and believe it's true. Protect the presence of essence with the aggression of a guard dog. Did you forget you was a god, y'all? Maybe you need someone believing you. Well, damn it, I believe in you. Not cause I'm expecting perception, I can see me in you. There's power in the questions and lessons is what I teach to you. Injecting my perspective suggested, no, I don't preach to you. Rejecting that you less than forever, know that you equal to. But this really for my people though, cause evil grows inside of the kind of minds that are ego drove. So engulfed inside of they ride, they cannot see the road. They criticize your drive, apply, they won't even go. Cause fear and faith is the only thing in comparison. One requires courage, the other desires evidence. How can what was ever determine what never been? Then again, the devil is ignorance mixed with arrogance. But we are the conscious collective. And CC, so I hope you get the message. But we are the conscious collective. Or CC, so I hope you get the message. Welcome. Yeah. Welcome. That feel good right there. But welcome. Thank you. You are too kind. You are what they call too kind. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy Q. It's your man Q. It's your guy Q. It's your brother Q. Because I do it for the kids. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. This is another impromptu show. Shouts out to us for just doing episodes. But today was an interesting day. I told you guys I got a regular job because y'all not paying me. So this could be my livelihood. Y'all want me here? No. But no, I get stuff out of doing this show also. Like I told you guys in season 1. Even if one day somebody stumbles across this podcast, I may even type them up once I get done with it and make it like a book or something. But if it comes across and it helps somebody, that means a lot to me. That's actually why I do this. Of course, monetary gain, who doesn't want that? Fuck notoriety. I'm like Tupac. All I want is money, fuck the fame. I'm a simple man. I'm like Tupac in that concept. And you guys know I love Tupac. I didn't know him, but what he did for me, the music that I heard, what it did for my life to give me a sense of hope. Listening to him saying, oh, you're not the only person going through this. That was a real big thing for me. So if somebody comes across this episode one day or comes across any of my episodes, I always want to say something that I hope can touch somebody, can help somebody, because everybody needs it. I've needed it. I still need it. I know there's people that probably don't like me, don't care about me, or even mad at me that probably still need it, because I feel like we're all in this together. As I said, I don't call you a God for the fun of it. I don't call you a God just to be saying anything. I call you a God because I literally believe you are a God. And if you don't believe in God, you're an atheist or whatever else. Whatever you believe in that created everything, you're a part of it because it created you. So you must have a part of it inside of you. But I'm at work. I told you guys I have a normal job. So I never told you guys I answer the phone. I talk to people on the phone for a living. That's what I do now. I went from running a company to now I answer the phone. So everybody got to start over. I had to start over, went through a divorce and all that. I know I haven't went into detail on that. My guy Jay keep telling me he wants to hear. I had someone at work tell me they was listening to an episode and wanted to find out. They said the same thing. They was like, man, I really want to know. It seems when I talk to people, people look at me like I'm something special. Like, oh man, it's cute. I appreciate it. I just don't really get it. I think people assume the way I deal with my pain. I just got something today. My mom sends me a TikTok. Well, I'm gonna just say social media. They ain't paying me. Well, fuck it. TikTok. Y'all can follow me on TikTok too. My TikTok, you can search There's Power in the Question. At is QMOED. I put stuff up on TikTok. I got videos up there. Don't laugh at me when I put the filter on. Okay? Do not laugh at me. We are the conscious collective. We family. Okay, you can laugh. Okay, do your thing. I don't care. Anyway, so my mama sends me something. The post was talking about a real man, and it was going down the list of things that confident men do and real confident men do. I get why she would send it to me. She put it in all caps in the text. She said, you. I think she thinks I'm stronger than what I actually am. So I've told this to people that cared enough to listen, people that even understood it enough to be able to understand where I'm coming from when I say it. But I tell people, I don't think I'm strong. I think I'm durable. Because in my mind, I romanticize the idea of being strong. Something happens and you just don't care. Like, man, I don't give a fuck about that, man. It's nothing. What they say, water off a duck's back or some shit like that. I don't know all the sayings. But I just think I'm durable. I think I can go through a bunch of things. I have been through a bunch of things and I just come out on the other side. But that doesn't mean it didn't hurt. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt from time to time. I'm just willing to pick myself. So when I say I'm willing to pick myself, what I'm saying is a lot of the times things feel like it's tough, and it may be the easiest way in the world is just to give up, to quit. It's a very easy thing to do. It's difficult, but it's easy at the same time. Because this is what I want to talk about today. I got a call at work. So I'm going to get to it, but I'm going to get back to what I was talking about. So I think people, when they look at me, and some people have admiration for me, and I appreciate it. It actually makes me feel good. Not because I'm this thing you think I am. And I'm going to do an episode about that called Confidence or Competence. But my confidence comes from not confidence, just willingness to try. So the shit may be hard, it may be difficult, but I just choose myself. And that's what I want to tell you. Choose yourself. Because sometimes people don't understand how tough your fight is. The people closest to you, the people that are put in your life by a creator, whatever you choose, by blood, genetics, whatever, the people that are closest in your life may not even understand it. But that pain is real to you. That pain is something you feel like you carry every day. You don't really know how to get past it. And you can look at other people and say, man, look how they're doing it. If only I can do it like that. You're on the outside looking in. This is part of the reason why I do the podcast. Because most people are going through something, whether they show you or not. Most people have and I think Chris Rock has a joke about this. He said, when you meet someone, you're meeting their representative. That's just not in a relationship. That's just not when you're trying to talk to someone or court someone. That's what people are doing on a regular. You don't know what a person is going through. Just like people don't know what I've been through and what I go through to this very day. And that's just because I picked myself. I'm new to it. I didn't know how to do this before. I never tried this before. So when people say, hey, you're a real man, you're a strong man, I appreciate that. But I look more at it like I'm a durable man. And I told you guys what I believe being a man is: managing anything necessary. And if you are God, the only person that can choose or deem what's necessary is you. So why wouldn't you be necessary? And the reason I ask that, because I feel like a lot of people go through it and a lot of people don't want to talk about it. You know, you going through it and nobody has to know this is your getaway. You can listen to my podcast while you're cleaning up, got your headphones on, while you're on a long drive. Shouts out to you. I appreciate you. And if this is hitting you and you feel like you got to cry, go ahead, cry, let it out. We all go through things. No matter how you see someone else appear to handle it, that could just be their representative. If we're all equal, we're all gods, we're all $100 billion diamonds. That means we're equal. So however tough it has been for you, it's probably been that tough for the next person. So, as I told you guys, I take calls at work. I get a call today. This guy calls in, we're going to call him Mr. Green. At my job, you have what's called like a handle time. So how quickly you get the call done. Whenever I have a job, when I'm the boss, yeah, I'm more personable, because that's the role you take as the boss. When you're the manager, supervisor, and all that, it's more about gathering people. It's more about getting people to buy into whatever the goal is. It's getting to understand people individually and give them that willingness to want to get the job done, even if it's not for themselves. If you're a good supervisor, a good manager, you can get someone to want to do the job for you. Like, hey, man, what do you think's slowing you down? And they give me their perspective. Hey, the customers are doing this. People are not passing verification, blah, 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 blah. Oh, yeah, I'm with you, bro. I can understand that. Because some people, they want to feel like they're doing you a favor, even though they're getting paid to do this motherfucking job. Because that's how I really feel. But because I'm at work and you understand you're talking to the person you're talking to, you try to get that out. Like, okay, this person, like, I'm not going to say his name because whatever. But this person I was talking to, I just, figured out he wants to feel like he's a tough guy. He wants to feel like he's important. Okay. So yeah, man, if we don't get this, my bonus don't look good. And then when your year-end reviews come around and you guys want me to have pizza for everybody, look, if we not doing this together, it falls on me. So if I'm not doing something, let me know what I can do to help, because when these numbers come back and we're in the red, we're not even in the black, let alone the green. We're in the red, we're not doing good. That falls on me. And I'm more expendable than you are. You know, be like, yeah, man, I tried a little bit something. Like, yeah, man, just let me know if you want me to sit with you. You know, maybe it's something I can help you do. Maybe it's something in policy that I can change. Maybe it's some procedural. I can probably change that. I'm more accommodating when I'm in that role, because I know that's what that role comes with. But now I'm just a regular dude that answered the phone. I've been working since I was 12. So I've been working most of my life. You guys know I grew up poor if you're part of the Conscious Collective. Not just poor, y'all know. So with me growing up like that, I understand that this is connected to my livelihood. I don't know if I told you guys, but I was homeless 3 times before I turned 12. I was technically homeless longer than that, but I had somewhere to stay. So when I go to work, I do my job. Whatever the thing is, whatever it requires, I'm doing my job. If I agree to take this job, I'm doing my job. That's what I'm here to do, my job. All that extra shit, like showing people my personality, making people feel good. Hey, if I don't get paid to do that shit, I'm probably not doing that shit. But if it's a good place and you got a good manager, or good supervisor and things like that, yeah, I do it. So with this job, I get the call and we got this handle time. It's like you supposed to get off the phone in like a couple minutes. You ain't supposed to be talking to somebody over 6 minutes, basically. You trying to get the calls down within 6 minutes. And I'm always a top performer. That's just me. Not bragging because I just got a regular job, but I do my job. That's who I am. But I get this customer on the line. I usually stay monotone. The same tone, same value, every call. Whether you call in to curse me out, whether you trying to be my friend. Hi, Quentin. Like, I ain't trying to talk, get your goof at. But they call in, I stay at the same tone. Thank you for calling. I may help. This customer calls in and he needed help. It was nothing I could really do because his situation, I wasn't able to really help him, which I don't really give a fuck about 9 times out of 10, to be honest. I'm just doing a job. If I can help you, I'm gonna help you. If I can't, I can't. On to the next call. 6 minutes is like the limit, really, to be on the phone. A lot of my calls be less than that. Like I said, I'm a top performer and I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna tell you the truth. People be calling in. So what am I supposed to do? And I don't give a fuck. Yo, goof ass. Like, go about your business. But when people have real things happen, I believe I'm good at feeling energy. So I'm talking to the guy and I'm gonna call him Mr. Green. So I'm talking to Mr. Green and he just going about his stuff. I'm monotone. Okay, yeah, there's nothing I could do. Yeah, there's nothing I can do. Yeah, I apologize that you're going through that, but unfortunately, there's nothing I can do. Like, why the fuck is you still online? Is what I'm thinking. Get the fuck off my line. So he has this long pause and he says, I'm just really trying not to kill myself. Now I'm in a dilemma. I'm in a struggle with myself. When I get off work, I got to decompress because I'm not my full self at work. Even at my other job, when I ran a company, I wasn't my full self, but I was more of myself because I'm still at work. I'm not at work. What up, nigga? I ain't doing that at work. So the dilemma I'm going through internally is, do I forsake myself and who I am and not talk to this person and try to help them? This is what I do. This is what I believe my gift is. Or do I just say, I'm at work. This has nothing to do with me. Fuck him. So I say, hold on, man. Mr. Green, what's going on? He say, my wife left me, going through a divorce. He says, I'm at this hotel room. My card's not working. He just start getting into the concept that it doesn't matter whether his card works or not. It doesn't matter because he's not going to need it because he finna do what we're going to call You-icide. I want to say the word. We talk about that word and I don't know if we're going to get flagged or anything. So we're going to call it You-icide. So he's telling me he's going to commit You-icide. He's going to blow his brains out. And I'm always who I am. Even when I do my job and I dial it back. I had an experience at work, a few experiences at work that really didn't sit with me well. And I don't like to presume on, be like, yeah, y'all did this because I'm this. I don't like to do that. People have their reasons. People go through things. People just may even just feel comfortable with certain people around them. And maybe I make them feel uncomfortable. I don't know. But I'm still me. I'm not going to sit there and hear that and do nothing? Like, I don't even have to do anything. I can just not talk to this God who's about to give up on the gift they were given. So I say, Mr. Green, I know we're supposed to be off the call. We had 4 minutes in the call. This call lasted, I believe, about 25 minutes. So my handle time wasn't shit for today. They ain't gonna give a fuck that I help somebody. They're gonna be like, fuck you. Your numbers ain't good. We're not giving you the raise you want. I'm like, Mr. Green. So my voice changed. I get to becoming myself. So I say, Mr. Green, normally I don't do this. I say, I understand that you're going through pain, but you can't find any value in yourself. Mr. Green is like, man, I put all my value in my wife and my kids and my company. And he was at his end. He was like, man, I'm done. He was ready to get off the phone. And I'm like, I just can't let you get off the phone like that. So I'm like, look here. I said, Mr. Green, I understand. Not saying I understand what you're going through, but I know pain. I said, I've looked down the barrel myself. And the only thing that helped me is something that I call purpose. I had to find purpose in my life. I told him, I said, I'm going through a divorce myself. I said, my divorce just was finalized not too long ago. I said, I put everything I had into that person. I didn't know a life without that person. And I was done. It was no going forward for me until I figured out a way to try to learn to love myself, which I didn't do until a few years ago. And I'm still working on it to this day. But I said, I want you to know something. You're the most valuable thing walking on this earth. If value is determined by how rare something is, there's no other you. And I said, if you have that much power and that much passion and you're that valuable and you can put it into somebody else, why can't you put it into yourself? So he gets to going down telling the story. I don't want to get into too much detail because one, I forgot a lot of what he said because it was hours ago. I think it was the first or second call of the beginning of my shift, and I'd be at work like 10 hours. No, I'd be at work 11 hours. Damn. But he kept talking to me and I kept replying to him. And I replied to him basically like how I was doing the podcast. And I had to tell him, you a side. Not like you a side piece, but you are a side that you can choose. So he was just like, man, I just don't get it. And I was like, I understand. I'm not saying that you're doing something wrong. I'm like, man, I know pain is tough. Also, living is tough. I said, you were married, right? You got a divorce. So you understand that marriage is tough, but also divorce is tough. Being with someone is tough, but also being by yourself is tough. I said, you have to choose which tough you're going to have to deal with. I said, I can't tell you what to do. I don't know you from Adam, but I can tell you this. If you know you got to do something that's tough anyway, why not pick the most valuable thing that there is? And that's yourself. So we talk a little bit longer. Now, mind you, the call was 25 minutes, but we talk a little bit longer. And at the end of the call, he literally said, I saved his life. Now, I know somebody probably looking like, man, get the fuck out of here. Your ass ain't saved nobody's life. Nigga, you answer the phone. Fuck is you thought you saved a life. So you saved a life at work today, Q. Get the fuck out of here. No, I'm just telling you what he told me. I hope he's alive. I almost told him the name of the podcast. Like, hey, you should check out my podcast. But I know laws and stuff. You do that. It's not even a law. It's actually company policy. You don't want to be advertising something you do with a company without the company's approval because you're under them. It's a whole ordeal. But anyway, he started telling me that he deals with addiction. And for you guys that's been here a while, you know in season 1, episode 9, what is addiction? I already touch on that and tackle that a little bit. And he was actually saying things that I wanted to tell him, like, man, you should listen to my episode. I didn't, though. Y'all heard the episode when Jay came on the show, and Jay was like, man, if you plug this motherfucking show one more time. He told me that I saved his life. He said he's going to go to his meeting, he deal with addiction, and he started telling me things that he go through. And the thing that he told me that stuck with him from me the most, he said that, and I'm going to tell y'all what he told me too. He told me something that stuck with me. And I'm like, dang. But he said one of the people, I guess, in his program tells them, like, I guess it's like a sponsor or something. But he was saying they tell him that a lot of people can listen, but not a lot of people hear you. From what you just, because I went on a little soliloquy, not too long because I'm at work, plus I got a handle time. But I went on probably like a 3 or 4 minute soliloquy of just talking to him. And he was saying that I can tell from listening to you that you weren't just listening, you heard me. And a lot of people don't hear me. He said, not even my family. And this is what he told me that resonated with me. He said, not even my family understands. I used to be just so fucking mad. I used to be so mad at them for not understanding. And he said it wasn't until later on I realized he became happy that they didn't understand, because that means they didn't have to carry what he has to carry. And I said, dang, that shit hit different. For anybody out there that's been through pain, because I've been through my pain too. For the motherfuckers you be mad at, like, man, how the fuck you ain't here to help? I'm going through all this. You don't really give a fuck. You don't really give a fuck. I know you don't care. I know you don't care. Then why weren't you there? Yeah, they may not understand. But he said, I'm happy for my family because they don't have to understand this, which means they don't have to experience it. And I said, that's deep. And we talked a little longer, and Mr. Green was just telling me, I'm going to make it to my meeting today because of you. I said, look, I know I'm just at work. I'm just the guy that answered the phone today. But if what I said is just a drop into the ocean of your existence, I'm happy for the little ripple I caused. I'm never going to think I did more than I actually did, but I'm so happy that you valued it. And if you do make it to your meeting today, thank you so much for doing that, for just believing in yourself. And he kind of checked me. He wanted me to give myself credit. He wanted me to know you are the reason I'm going to be there. I want you to know before we get off this phone, you are the reason I'm making it to the next day. And that shit hit me. Now, he could have just been saying that because he needed somebody to talk to. He could have just been saying that, I was in a bad mood. I wasn't really going to commit you-icide, but this dude going to sit there and talk to me? Man, it's been 25 minutes. He's still talking to my ass. I'm over here just bitching. But whatever it was, I appreciate his appreciation of me trying. You guys that listen to the show, you already know. So I tell you guys that the try, that's the most valuable thing. That's all you really have is the try. So he said, you know what? I'm going to try. I said, you can't do anything over that. So all you can do is put your best effort forward and just try. If you can just try to start valuing yourself, if you can try to pick yourself, you are a side that you can pick. And then I had a meeting with my big boss after that, like the boss of our whole little site. We had a good meeting. He gave me some good pointers and stuff like that. But I just thought that was interesting that that's the call I got to start my day. But I've been there. I know I haven't really talked about it, but I've been there. I wanted to go. I had an incident happen. If I tell that story, I'm probably going to have to do a whole episode. But I had an incident happen when I was young. I think I was 9. Yeah, I was 9. And it was a situation where I could have got killed. And the only thing in my head was, please do it. If I'm gone, I don't have to experience this pain anymore. I don't have to sit here and walk around with this pain anymore. And then I remember another time when I was at that point, I was with the woman that I invested my entire life into. And I can understand how that may not seem like a lot to some people. And the things were just going so bad. I felt that every mistake I made, I couldn't get beyond the mistakes I made. All I wanted was just for us to be happy. I didn't know a happiness without them being happy. And when I felt like all that causality, the way I see the world, all those things that I deal with to make episodes and show correlations to things, I see that in my everyday life. I knew when our relationship was going to end at a point because I saw the pattern of it. I even wrote poems. I may read one of them to you guys. I got a lot of them. I even wrote poems to try to show her, like maybe if I use or what I consider to be my talent to show it, maybe it'll come off better than me just trying to explain it when I'm the one that's causing all the problems. I'm the issue. I'm the bad person. I'm the bad guy. And I just felt like if I can't be right for a person that I got, every ounce of love that I had inside of me was only in them. If they were down, I was down. If they were happy, that was the only way I could be happy. If they were happy and it wasn't including me, but it was like in spite of me, I couldn't be happy because I felt that I'm so messed up. You got to go find happiness somewhere else. And then when I come around or you see me, I see your energy drop in your face like, oh, this nigga. And I felt like it was no other reason for me to be here. I felt like I didn't have family. I felt like I don't have the one person in the world that I put everything into. So what's the use? If I keep fucking this up, if I keep hurting you, what's the use? And I was done. I just wanted to be gone. I just felt like it was no reason. And then I have a fear of failure because I've lived on the side where what happens with failure. I've lived outside. I've been in a shelter. I've been hungry, homeless. I went days without eating. My goal, even as a kid, was just never to be hungry or homeless again. And due to that trauma, I have a trauma of failure. That's probably why the big reason is when I go to work, I do my fucking job. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to do my job. And a lot of people be like, man, you can just be cool with people and move up the corporate ladder. But guess what? If I get the job being cool with you, you're not an honest person. I'm an honest person. I'm who I am. So if you just come to me with your fake bullshit work persona and pretend to be my friend, and then what happens when you don't like me anymore? Now my livelihood is in jeopardy because you don't like me? No, I'm not going to do that because you play on my livelihood, and please don't play with my livelihood. Look, I ain't threatening nobody. So I don't want to fail, so I'm going to do that job. And I also didn't want to fail in my marriage. And I held on years while feeling like I was dying inside. It got to the point where I was even losing weight. I went from 205 pounds to 176 pounds. I forgot what the time frame was, but it was real quick. It was just internal stress. It was that internal fight that only thing I'm bringing to this person's life is misery. The only source of bad in their life is me. And they're my only source of everything. So what was my point of being alive? I just wanted to go. But due to experiences in my life coming up, watching someone almost take their life, watching someone have to get their stomach pumped to get pills out because they tried to kill themselves, it had an effect on me, and I made a choice. And I'm big on the choices I make. That's why being married, making that choice to be with you through thick and thin, and to feel like for my sanity and safety, I had to go against my choice. It bothers me. So I try to stick with my choices. I try to stand on my choices. And the choice I made is I wouldn't do that because I know how I felt experiencing it with someone I love, with them almost never being around again at their own hands. So when it's tough like that, my idea was to find purpose. So I found purpose in looking for love. That's why I told you guys before, when I was young, any girl that ever talked to me would tell you like, yeah, you was with Q. Q was talking like he was trying to marry you then, because that was my purpose. My purpose was love. What I felt like I lacked, my romanticizing of the idea of love, that became my purpose. So if I'm talking to a girl, I'm not finna talk to you and waste your time. I want us to be together. I'm trying to make this shit work because this is my purpose. And then to find one girl and one woman, I'm like, okay, I'm doing this till I die. I lost that purpose. And it was me. It was because of me, my doing. But to not have that purpose, I had to find another purpose, because without purpose, that's when those thoughts come in. That was when those thoughts would come in of You-icide. So when I lost my friend, when he passed, he was one of the people I would talk to about things like this, because he grew up in a similar situation like me. He grew up in the hood and things like that. He's from the city also. When you go through things like that, people that didn't experience it can't understand a lot of the things that you go through. So they wouldn't know. They have their trauma also. I'm never diminishing anybody's story, anybody's trauma. They have theirs. But this type of trauma, it has its own category. And people that resonate with it understand it. So my purpose was to take his advice. When I told him, I said, man, I'm going to try to learn how to love myself. This is before he passed, like a year before he passed. He was so happy for me. He was like, man, that's what I'm talking about, Q. That's what I'm talking about. I'm trying to tell you, bro, you out of that. He was like, look, man, you got this big house. You got a wife and boom, boom. So I picked myself. I picked myself and said, I'm going to try to do things that are for the betterment of me. Not necessarily make me happy, just bring me peace, because peace is my happiness. Try to do what I can to do things for myself and not feel as horrible as I felt for so long, feeling like I was nothing but the bad guy. And it took a lot. This podcast actually helps me a lot, because I've had all these theories and all these ways I talk to people. Helping other people helps me. So when I could talk to somebody and they tell me like, man, talking to you really got me through, it makes me feel amazing. For years, people have been saying, man, Q, you should do a podcast, boom, boom. You should do a show, man. You should talk to people. That's what you really should do. You should talk to people. You ever thought about becoming a therapist? Pain is pain. We all have it. We all have life experiences. And this shit is tough. And it's so much pain to pick from. It's so much shit that you got to carry that you don't know what the fuck you gonna do. And I just want to tell you, for all the people that go through this shit, we all have our stories. I got people in my life, I've talked to people where they sit there and tell me like, yeah, I tried to commit you-icide. I'm what? You so bubbly. Like, when did you? Like, man, this bubbly is my representative because I've been through things. Talking to somebody, you looking them in their face and they just going like, what's the purpose of me being here? And I'm going, damn. And they got the nerve to tell me, you know, you have a gift when you talk to people, you help people. But if I can't give it to the people I love, is it really a gift? Well, I sit there and I've talked to people, and so many people have the same story where they wanted to commit you-icide. And it's from the pain. And I know I do this show and I tell you that the pain, facing it, is how you get to the other side. It's how you get to the next level of ascension, or whatever you want to call it. But it's the way that gets you more of who you are. That's why the first season is about knowledge of self. Because instead of committing you-icide, how about you learn who you are and realize all those things you can pick, all those different sides, whether it's I'm going to put it into somebody else and show them love. I'm going to put it into my work. I'm going to put it into my kids. I'm going to put it into my talent. I'm going to put it everywhere else but myself. I want you to look at it and listen to my words when I tell you this. You are an option you can pick. You aside. It's only when you push you aside that those thoughts of committing you aside come into play. You lose sight of self. You don't see the worthiness in yourself. And if you listen to me, I already told you, you are a god. You a $100 billion diamond. No matter how much dirt and shit is all on you, once you clean that shit off, you still a $100 billion diamond. That dirt and shit ain't nothing but the past. All that pain and shit that you go through, no matter how far it's dug, if you dig and dig with enough persistence and consistent resilience, you can pull that diamond up out of there and it's still going to be a $100 billion diamond. Don't push you aside. You got all that work to put in for everybody else. Put it into yourself. You aside that can be picked. Don't push you aside. Choose yourself. And I know this shit is tough. And if we got to keep working, we got to keep working together. Because we are the conscious collective and we're here to help each other. If you come to my page, anything, let's talk. If you talk to somebody else so you can help them, do that. If we all in here together, if we elements to a periodic table, if we're ingredients to a dish, if we're like animals, if we're anything, we're all in here together. You never know what somebody's going through. I'm not telling you not to be yourself. I'm saying get to know yourself. And always know that no matter whoever falls away, you-icide you can pick. And the more you're yourself, I believe wholeheartedly that people like you will gravitate to you. People that can accept you will gravitate to you. I will tell anybody this. You can't be my friend. We can't be in a relationship if you don't accept me for me and I accept you for you. That's the bare minimum. So remember, you-icide. Don't commit suicide by pushing you aside, because you-icide that you can pick. And the shit may be tough and you need help, reach out. The shit may be tough, you need to talk, write, do something. Because no matter what, everything is tough. Being alone is tough. Being with somebody is tough. Having no problems is tough. Having problems is tough. I know you're probably thinking like, having no problems is tough. What are you talking about? I would love to have no problems. Think about a concept where everything was easy and that was good for you. Anything worth having is worth fighting for. And I believe you're worth having. So you are worth fighting for, even if you have to fight by yourself. It's like watching someone struggle that's on the ground. If you see them trying to get up, I believe someone is more likely to reach out and help you up. But if you just laying there bitching about not being able to get up, I think people will be less likely to help you. Pick yourself first, and I believe everything else will fall in line. because you are strong enough to deal with it because you're here right now and able to hear my voice. And even the person that can't hear my voice, they can hear somebody else's voice, that mean they strong enough. So remember, you a side that can be picked. And I don't give a fuck how hard it was. Don't let your past bully your present into becoming your future. Because what they call pure is tampered with. The cure can't answer it. You're lost in the world looking for answers that's answerless. Look, man, the show finna change, y'all. Spoon fed long enough, now it's game on. Flame on, Johnny Storm with his napalm. Stay calm, yeah, strong, but it ain't on. Excuse me, but there's power in the question. You'll see that the power's in your essence. Confuse me, but I found it impressive. I constantly responded and found a reflection. Is also reflective. Now tell me what is info. Disregard, you don't know what your info. Start saying you a god playing limbo. That shit I had you at odds with your kinfolk. You telling me kicking God cause I'm in rote. Forgive me, but it's hard to compress all his knowledge of self and astonishing in post. To invoke, I'm a god that's within quotes. I've been dope and my conscience a big hope. Accuse me if you think that I'm wrong when I speak with my balls, but this is his show.